Hey there, welcome to the Mindful Mama Movement podcast. This is episode 32. Mindful mothering is about nurturing yourself while you nurture others. It's about consciously awakening to your inner wisdom, strength, peace, and power as a mother in this changing world. From discovering your newborn to loving and accepting the wonderful people who've left your nest, our movement is inspiring mamas to be authentic and to live empowered lives. We are so happy you're here.
Welcome, everybody. We're so excited to be here with you today. Today's topic, Shannon and I have been talking a lot about grief and loss and healing. And so that's what we're going to talk about. And mostly, we've both been experiencing grief and loss in very different ways. And we want to share with you our journey, but also some things that have supported us in our healing journey. So Shannon, hi.
Hi, Ash. Yeah, hi. I don't know where this is going to go because I've already started crying since before we hit record.
Yeah, well, we can cry. We can cry on podcasts.
That's right.
Share with us a little bit about that you just had the 1-year anniversary of your dad's passing and just what kind of grief has been like for you and of course your healing journey.
Yes. So as I'm talking to you, I'm looking out my window and a red cardinal just flew in. And, I really do believe in signs. Saw a hummingbird just a minute ago too. So I'll share some of what's been helpful on my journey. But, my dad passed away September 11th, a year ago. And surprisingly, it was unexpected. He'd never been sick that we knew of. He went to bed and didn't wake up the next morning. And that was the most horrible day of my life, getting that call. And I can go back to those beginning times of grief because it was so new for me. I had not had that kind of loss in my life before. I lost my grandparents. I've lost, people close to me, but nothing like a parent. So this past weekend, my sister and I went on a journey to Colorado to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of losing him. We knew we wanted to do something special and somewhat distracting, but also honoring his memory and not, reliving those first few days. But it's so interesting, Ashley, because we were sitting on a mountain, and I'll share a little bit about what got us to that mountain, but we had some of his ashes, and that was a whole different experience of facing his ashes. It took me about 8 months before I could really do that. But we were hiking on this amazing place surrounded by nature, and we were sitting there and we played one of his songs. And music to me is always a language. Like that's, I think for so many, Doobie Brothers were his, my dad's music.
Dad, I grew up, Doobie Brothers is the theme of my childhood.
Oh my God.
And
okay.
It was loud.
So the song, listen to the music. Like if I want to tune in with my dad, like that's the song I play. And, that's that and Steely Dan. So when my sister and I were on the mountain, we played Steely Dan, Reeling in the Years. And my dad had this kind of high singing voice. Like to us, it sounds like dad singing to us. Like those were my memories of dad. He was just he loved to sing. And so we played this music. Somehow we got cell service on this mountain, and we were with his ashes. We were playing Steely Dan. And then of course, just tears. And for the first time, it like hit me that, gosh, we've been kind of almost anticipating the year anniversary, and we got to it. And I'm like, oh crap. Like I could make it through a year. This is forever. This is forever,
Yeah.
So that was really striking.
Like it hit you. It's very interesting. Yeah. That like, oh, this is forever.
Yes. And, had a lot of interesting moments. And I know people that have gone through loss have had this experience before where it doesn't make sense to your mind. Like, you believe they're gone, you understand what happened. I was at a concert recently this past summer, and it was so crazy. My dad used to wear these really silly Hawaiian shirts. And I looked, the sun was coming down, and I looked at this guy at the end of the row, getting in the row. This is like 8 months after he's
Mm.
passed. And the sun was just so behind his head that I couldn't see the guy's face, but I saw this
Mm.
Hawaiian shirt, looked exactly like what my dad would have worn. And my everything in me was like, oh my God, dad's here. Like my heart stopped, my everything. Yeah. And I look over and it was just it took me several seconds before I'm like, no, it can't
Mhm.
be. But those kinds of things happen often. So when we were on this weekend, I was sharing with you a little bit about my epic Red Rocks
Mm.
experience. And I went to see the Indigo Girls. I went to see Brandy Carlisle. We ran into and got to hug Abby Wambach and Glennon Doyle. We were surrounded by these amazing, powerful women. And everyone in that venue on the full moon was vibrating with joy, just complete
Mm.
and utter joy. And I don't even know a time I've been that happy, like other than marriage and birth of my children. It was
Yeah.
so palpable. It
Mhm.
was so beautiful. And then the very next day, that same night after midnight, we got home about 1 o'clock. That was the time my dad passed away a year ago. And so that complete and utter sadness, struck us. And so it's just, I was really hit by this idea that you can have pure bliss and pure joy
Mm.
at the same time that you feel complete and utter sadness.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that, I guess, is my grief journey. Like that's what being a human is, right? It's about
Mhm.
feeling that loss, and also like this intention to like live. I think that's
Yeah.
another thing that got
Yeah.
me to that weekend, Ashley, was like, I'm more not trying to figure life out so much. I'm just trying to
Mm.
live it more.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really powerful. And through the years, grief and loss comes up in so many ways, not always death. But when we've experienced a profound loss,
Mhm.
I have found similar things that a lot of times there's deep depression. A lot of times there's some big aha moments like life is meant to be lived. Like, what am I waiting for? Retirement? That
Right.
there's a new, like, as they say, lease on life. But I also think sometimes, and I'm interested if this is relevant for you, that like when we've had the loss, the loss, it feels so sad. And so your brain could only handle this year, you know,
Yes.
that you needed to get through this year and then settle into like, I made it.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden the
Yes.
moment is, I mean, it's still really
Yeah.
freaking sad that like, oh, this is forever. And I made it through a year. That
Mhm.
there's some perspective, I think, that comes through, like, but I'm still okay. When it first happened, you couldn't have thought beyond a year. Like that's way too much, way too far out.
Mhm.
That like, ooh, am I gonna make it through the birthday, the Christmas, the anniversary?
Right.
And also live my life and have a full expression of living my life.
Mhm. Yeah.
When he first passed, it feels like I'm never going to feel that bliss again and joy because
Very
it's so
much.
hurtful.
Yeah, very much. And I don't think until you lose a parent, like then you really understand what that feeling
Mm-hmm.
is like. And then you're right. Everyone's grief is so different, no matter what the loss is. For me personally, it was like I couldn't get out of the fog. Like there is a true fog that happens, like nothing else
Mm-hmm.
mattered. I couldn't, it was just a day by day. And I'm like, am I ever like, and my mind would just be like, my dad's dead, my dad's dead, my dad's dead. Like it would just like run on. It was just
Yeah.
crazy. And then there's finally a moment that happened where it's like, oh, I didn't think about it for an hour, you know? And then it's like, oh, I didn't think about it for I wouldn't say even I've been to the point of a day, because usually it's at night when everything's quiet and I
Mm-hmm.
think about him and I miss him. And I read this quote and I don't exactly know where I got it from, but it's this question that I thought was really helpful. And it says, what does my grief need today?
Mm-hmm.
I know. And I love that so much
Oh my God.
because, yeah, you know,
It's
I,
really great.
because grief doesn't ever go away. It's like it morphs and it changes. And I think of it like a wave. And, but like we were talking earlier before we hit record, it's like, but we need to make space for our grief. We have to feel it. And so when I ask myself, what does my grief need today? Some days it needs laughter. It needs not think about it. Some days
Mhm.
it needs to reach out to a friend. I met a friend who lost her mom about 2 weeks before my dad passed, and it's like a similar journey. We're just like, how you doing? Like, we just knew we needed to check in on
Mhm.
each other. Sometimes my grief needs that. Sometimes I need to listen to the Doobie Brothers and sit in this
Yeah.
particular place where I used to
Yeah.
meet my dad all the time and just let the
Mhm.
tears flow. So it needs something different every day. But I love that question, and I want to share that with
Mhm.
anyone who's listening who is experiencing, any kind of loss, whether it's the loss of our
Mhm.
youth, whether it's the loss of a
Mhm.
person, whether it's the loss of a dream, whether it's the loss of our children being young and in the
Mhm.
home. Like, it's real, isn't it? And some days you're like, cool, it's gone. Like, I don't have it. And then
Whew. Yeah.
somebody, like, literally,
Yeah.
I can be just, this happened to me. I was in a conference recently and I didn't think about it. I was so present. I was like studiously taking notes. And the person who was presenting, she just
Mhm.
said the word my dad. And all of a sudden I was like, I could have cried. I was
Uh-huh.
like, oh my God,
Yeah.
she still has her dad. Like, I couldn't,
Mhm.
right? And it
Mhm.
just comes and goes. And so what does your grief need today has been really helpful for me.
I think it's so helpful. And I remember when my grandfather died when I was 15, and I love my dad, who's still here, but he traveled a lot. And so he wasn't with us much at all, but my grandfather was. We saw him every single day, my mom's dad. And I was in bed with him when he died.
Oh,
I know. And I was
wow.
15 years old, and I watched 1,000 Royals games like in his lap. And like my
Mm.
childhood male was my grandfather.
Yep.
And my mom was my mom and I were both in bed with him, like just holding him when he died. And my grandmother kind of sitting at the base of the bed in her chair, and she was very stoic. And we knew he was dying, he had cancer. And almost minutes after he died, we're all so sad. And my mom, first thing she said was, "You're never ready to lose your parent." Like,
Never.
I knew this was happening. Like, I knew
Yeah.
he was passing, and that doesn't matter. You're never ready to lose your parent. Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
sad. And, here I go. But I see your eyes watering. You're getting me going here. I think that was the thing that struck me the most was,
Mm,
in a way, when I lost him, it was like, oh my gosh, I felt like I was like losing that love. Like, the
mm,
people that love you unconditionally are usually your parents, right? And it
mhm.
was like, oh my God, like that now I'm like half loved. And I know that
I guess
isn't
that's over. Yeah.
right. But the person who would do absolutely anything for you, that support is gone. And I will say, one of the most like helpful for me in this stage of the grief is, well, Laura Lynn Jackson is a medium who wrote the book Signs, the Secret Language of the Universe. And I'm telling you, this cardinal is still here just staring at me. So
Oh,
I've had a
wow.
thing with birds and, hummingbirds and butterflies and these signs from
Mm,
my dad. And really, if you believe in that and have had an opportunity to open your heart and mind to the other side, I know that love's never gone. I know that in a
mhm,
way, like, I get to talk to him now every single day and I get to feel
mhm.
that love from him every day. Does talking to a bird, like, hey, dad, replace getting to talk to him? Absolutely
Yeah.
not. But there
Mhm,
is a different relationship I now am informing with him. But it's absolutely the truth. And the cards that I received after losing him, the ones that touched me the most were the people who really acknowledged that there is just nothing, there is absolutely nothing that prepares you for losing a parent. And yet it's something most of us will walk through one day. And and that leads me to the other helpful book. It's Okay That You're Not Okay. I think that's what it's called, by Megan Devine.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
okay that you're not okay, because I didn't even know some of the things that I've said to people when they've gone through loss that was probably the worst thing to say, right? And so she
Mhm.
really just like gives you tips on not only what to say to people who are going through loss, but also why people say the things that they say and why we take them a certain
Mhm.
way. But the main thing is our culture doesn't really do good with grief, and we are taught that we think like, what's wrong with you, like, your parent died 3 months ago, 25 years ago, like, and you're still crying,
Yeah.
and that really
Yep.
struck me too, because I met a lot of women since my dad died who've also lost their dads. And some would say, like, oh, my dad died, 30 years ago. And as
Mm.
they're sharing their story, they'd tear up. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is really 30 years. I'm going to feel this.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
Mm.
just part of the wave of grief. And I think that was really empowering. I had a friend give me that book, and I thought, God, that really is what I needed at the time, because there is something, that this message we get, that we're supposed to like just forget about or get over it, or really you're still
Well,
feeling
there's a
that?
timeline on the grief,
Right.
that like you had the aha moment that like, oh, this is he's he's really gone. Every single time I've lost anybody, a friend or family member, that every single time I'm like, so it's just over? Every time. I
Right.
lost a friend from college 2 weeks ago,
Mm.
and I'm like, so this is just it? Never again?
Ashley,
Like it that like really I don't know why it comes up. I know it's over.
I
I know
know.
what death is, but it always feels like it's a smack in the face a little bit, like done. It's a period at the end of the sentence. It is not, there's not a dot dot dot. It's a it's really finite. And I also believe that, I mean, I keep my angels so close to me and I ask them to work for me. When I'm worried about my boys, I call in. I usually sit in meditation and I'm like,
Mhm.
who's available? Like,
Yes.
I need you to
Yes.
get to that boy because I can't be there. It makes me cry that, as your children leave, like we're not there in the way that we got to be every single day, and make sure they're home. And my mother, this will make me cry, that she has been in the hospital a lot and struggling. And they were talking to her this May about like, when we do this procedure, that you're likely to,
Mm.
these are some things that could happen. Do you want us to save you? And my son Ben and I sat right literally in the chair that I'm in, and he sat across from me. And I called on my grandfather who died when I was 15. And he was just the best. He was very sensitive. He was a sensitive man, and he cried a lot. And I said, Grandpa John, this is going to be hard for you, but you need to lay your hands on my mama. We're
Yeah.
not ready.
Oh my
It's so
God.
sad.
Uh,
But for me, I do feel, and a lot of mediums also would believe this, that our angels stay close. They're gonna
yeah.
serve us. That part of the loss is also that they can be there for us. Their spirit can be there for us in a different way than they could be there for us on this earth. And I hope it's true.
Well, I'm always been a skeptic by nature. I'm so open to life beyond this life,
Uh,
but my mind
uh,
always wants to doubt things. And I went to a psychic or a intuitive healer, and I
mhm.
swear to God, I know my spirit, my angels were there. And my dad was the
Mhm.
first one out of the gate. And the things that she shared with me, of course, I'm like, did you just steal my journal? Like, she was so
Yeah.
specific. And it was so magical, I have to say, because I felt, and she even kind of like talked like my dad. Like, she said things that my dad would have said, and my
Mhm.
grandparents were there, and my just so many messages. And I left, it was like, I was so elated. And then the next day I was super sad because I'm like, great, now I'm back to
Yeah.
talking to birds again. Like, I felt like he was he was right there. But I
Yeah.
swear to you, like, there's no doubt in my mind now after
Mhm.
what I've experienced. And I love that you shared that. Did you say it was Grandpa John? Is that
Grandpa John.
my
Mhm.
dad's name was John, so we call him
Oh, God.
Baba. I
Mm.
know, but it's
Baba.
Baba John. But
Mhm.
what I hear from you sharing that story to me
Mhm.
is that one of the things that's helped me get through this is knowing we're not alone, knowing that I
Mm.
can still access my angels, knowing that I can still talk to him, knowing that we're being protected in some way. And I find that really relieving, especially like you said, when we're sending it to the people here, sending it, surrounding ourselves with love and knowing that it's not all on our shoulders. I really do
Yeah.
feel that love and support from my grandparents, from my dad. You're feeling it from your grandpa John.
Mhm.
And so tell me, has that, besides that, in leaning into your spirits and your angels, like
Mhm.
what else has been helping you through? Because your loss of your children
Mhm.
not being under your roof right now, I
Mhm.
know has been hard. And that's another type of grief that you're experiencing right now.
It's really deep grief, and I'm gonna tell you, it is. I have friends that just think it's a blast, that they've been, like, looking forward to this empty nesting and house stays clean, I can do whatever I want. I've never looked forward to it, never once in my life, and I don't know if I'm just different or enmeshed in my kids,
I'm not
but
looking forward to it, I'll tell you that. Yeah.
yeah, and,
Mhm.
um, when my oldest went to college, I would go hide in the bathroom and put, like, a washcloth into my mouth so my little boys couldn't hear me crying because it was
Mm.
desperate.
Yeah.
And that was the first, time that I was like, things are different. Like kids go to college or, whatever, move out, that our family is different now. And we're not a family, but it's not the everyday together. He needs me a little less. I don't get to see him as often. And that was very hard for me. And so many of my friends would say back then, like, oh, but he's doing so great, but he's having such a blast. I'm like, I know that. I'm happy for that. And this is the bliss and the grief. I'm
Yes.
so happy for him. He's doing great. He's having fun. He's off figuring out himself. I'm sad.
Yes. Oh,
I'm sad
right.
that,
And to
and I'm
allow you
happy
to
when I'm
feel
with
the
him.
sadness, because I think so often
Yeah.
we take that off of the mother, really, and
Yeah.
we want to highlight what the kids are going through, but at the same time, you're experiencing something different and need to be acknowledged, need to feel it.
Yeah. I'm totally happy for him. I get it.
Yeah.
But this year for me with my baby, like everybody's gone, felt like it was never going to happen. That I don't think I really believed I was ever going to kind of have a house without kids in it. I never have. And so um, the quiet is a really strange thing for me, and coming home to an empty house. And,
Wow.
I'm married, like Will's there a lot, but like, I have to get home before him, or he's out of town right now. And I'm like, what? You're leaving? You're leaving me? That I feel anxiety. My heart feels nervous, and it feels kind of like abandonment. And I know it's not intellectually, it
Right.
still feels that way.
Mm.
It feels like everybody just leaves me. Here I am here for all of you, and you guys just keep leaving me. So it feels tough. And I was sharing with Shannon before we were recording that I'm going to see my two youngest boys who have been gone since August 12th. Today is, I don't even know what today is.
September
September
15th.
16th. Yeah, 15th,
Uh-huh.
16th. So it's been about 5 weeks, and I'm going to see them this weekend. And I'm nervous because I know they're going to be a little different, you know, and I want them to run into my arms
Yes.
and celebrate, like, that's my mama.
Yeah.
I want that embrace kind of. And I know it's probably not going to happen, but I know I'm going to see my kids in a different way than I've seen them before. And uh Yeah,
I know.
it'll be fun.
I just wrote the word sob down. Like I just feel like sobbing. I feel like sobbing for you. I feel like
Yeah,
sobbing
yeah.
because of it. I'm just kind of going touching into the teenage years right now, and it's even that. Like we can mark like the last time they held your hand in public,
Hmm.
and then the last time
Yeah.
that they really gave you that big squeeze,
Climbed into bed.
running
Mhm.
into your arms. Like it's just you don't think it's ever gonna go away, and it changes, and I
Mhm.
think that's the theme of this conversation is the how to navigate change, because with change
Mhm.
comes loss, with change
Yep.
comes loss, like no
Mhm.
matter what the change is. I'm looking
Mhm.
at my body. You said you were almost 50, like I'm getting there too, and it's like
Mhm.
everything's changing, and there
Mhm.
is a sense of loss and sadness, and also a sense of exciting and celebration
Mhm.
too. And when you were telling me that about how you're anticipating seeing them, you said that you are so excited and terrified at the same time.
Mhm.
And that's
Yep.
exactly how I felt this past weekend at that concert. It was like I was elated and overjoyed and truly plugged into bliss,
Mhm.
and at the same moment looking up at the sky knowing this
Mhm.
was the last day that my dad passed
Mhm.
away, like it's or the day, a year
Mhm.
previous, it was complete and utter sadness, all in a
Mhm.
big soup. All in a big soup
Ah,
of sob. And it's
yeah.
yeah, it's part of the experience, and I
Something that
love.
just came up for me when you said that was I wonder if because you went to the concert, it's a full moon, you're at Red Rocks, it's Indigo Girls and Brandy Carlisle. And so it's for sure a very feminine and emotional
Yeah.
night that allowed you to like really have an open heart to then have
Oh,
a new level of grief, you
yes.
know, a more pouring out. And I love that you and your sister did this with intention. It feels like something you guys should do every year, that you do something together and celebration of living and honoring.
Yes. Oh, you gave me chills, because what the psychic told me, the main dad
Mm,
thing, that message my dad had for us was not only that he was incredibly happy, incredibly proud
mm,
of us, that he could breathe, but he he wanted us to celebrate his life, and he wanted us to
mm,
just remember the life and to live with music,
mm,
with laughter, with
mm,
dance, like funny silly movies and silly quotes and music. That was our love language with our dad, and that's what he kept
mm,
saying over to celebrate life. And so yeah, that is, I think, what's going to help
mm,
us get through, the sad parts. The kids, they called my dad Baba, and they believe in signs, and it's really
mm,
sweet to watch them ask for signs. In particular, Grayson, who's my youngest, he's almost 9. Anytime he finds a golf ball, that has been his thing, because
mm.
they used to walk on trails with my dad, and it seemed like every time they'd go on a trail, they'd find a golf ball. So they literally, Ash, before I hit record to this, we were talking about my dad, and Grayson said, because my dad also just had his birthday, we need to celebrate Baba's birthday every year. And so as a family,
Mm.
we said, why don't we have a golf ball scavenger
Oh
hunt?
yeah, like
Like a
scavenger
scavenger
hunt.
hunt,
Yep.
like a golf ball scavenger hunt in honor of Baba. And we're like,
Mhm.
I love that.
Mhm.
So I love that I'm
Mhm.
including them in, being able to
Yeah.
share their grief too, and be able to share their way of celebrating his memory. And
Mhm.
because this is the first of many losses to come in our life, and it's good that we're
Well, and
doing
you're
it together
giving
and
your
talking about
kids
it.
tools also for celebration and support and honoring of like remember when you
Mhm.
found that golf ball. And I mean this is stupid, but like as my kids have gotten older, like they all have iPhones. And my dad, he's 75 and he has a lot of one liners and he texts that way. Like, I don't know, we'll send a picture of a kid at prom and my dad will go, how about that? And then he'll send us like an emoji with like dark sunglasses, like the cool emoji. That there's so many things that we can hear him saying
Mhm.
through the way he texts the boys. But my dad's very funny also, and he texted Owen because they're going to the University of Arkansas, and the mascot there is Razorbacks slash Hogs. And my dad texted Owen the other day, how's school going or something? And Owen said, really fun. And dad said to him, you don't need to be messing around with any of them hogs. And Owen thought it was so funny, that my dad's, that
Yes.
it's just messing with him. And if we don't remember the funny things, then again, I just keep saying honoring and dishonoring, that it's a dishonoring of their life and
Yes.
how they affected us. It's not just sad. They did
Yes.
die, but there's all these really fun and funny things
Mm-hmm.
that we should remember. It's
Yeah.
almost a dishonoring if we don't. And I've shared about my sister-in-law probably a few times that both of her parents died when she was 18, and then her only sibling died 3 years later. And so when she was 21, she was an orphan and lost her only sibling. And she has been so amazing with her children that never knew her family, that she makes their favorite food on their birthdays and anniversaries. And there's always a cake on their birthdays. And she talks about them in such a present tense
Mm.
that, like, her kids talk about Uncle Chad as if they've known him.
I
And
love that
that
so much.
I love it so much. And they feel close
Yeah.
to those angels, or
Yes.
whatever you want to call them, in their life. They never met them.
Wow. I think that's really special. And I think it's a reminder too that, you know, we live on through our stories, and we can share those stories. So even when I think about you and what you're feeling right now as you go to see your boys, and what you feel
Mm-hmm.
like when you go home to the quiet house, it's like being able to share the stories and the family traditions and focus on some of those wonderful experiences you've had, and then also getting to be open to the new stories that you guys are going to write together, and I feel
Yeah.
like that is a way that I'm focusing on celebrating my dad's
Mm-hmm.
life, is through the stories, and not discounting the sadness, but also just really focusing on the life, the memories of our good times together, and the
Mm-hmm.
qualities that I want to remember and share with the people that are still here. That's how they live on.
I did this kind of fun activity with a couple that I was working with, who the dad had lost his one of his parents. And though, and now he's a dad, and, really struggling with, like,
Mhm.
the child's like 2 or 3 years old, and they're not gonna, remember my parent, and blah, blah, blah. So we did this thing that's just kind of sharing about your family of origin. So he
Mm.
wrote down about, like, my favorite holiday traditions, like what this parent did during this, and even like discipline that we went through, values, traditions, parental roles, like what did it look like, and what did you love? There's some things we don't love, let's just all be honest about, you know
Mhm.
our family of origin or whatever, but the things that you really loved about this person that you've lost, let's bring them in to the way you're parenting or your Thanksgiving feast. Like, this is
Mhm.
my thing that they love so much. Like, bring it in, and they can be a part of it, and even calling it like Grandma Velma's, ham sandwich or whatever, they are, that then they
The
get,
Doobie
then they
Brothers.
really live
Right.
on. The Doobie
Yes.
Brothers.
I love
My
that you
dad
have
calls the Doobie Brothers 100-mile-an-hour music.
I'm
Isn't that
still
great?
looking for like a Doobie Brothers tribute band, or like even if they go on concert, like I'm going. So if anybody
Yeah.
sees that, let me know. I love that. I love your sharing. Thank you. I mean, this is just,
Mm.
tip of the iceberg of conversation around loss, but I hope that people are listening. This invites you to share your stories too and reach out to us.
Yeah.
Right now, we're on Instagram at Mindful Mama Movement Podcast. Our website we're working on, so we'll get that up shortly. But, if there's some loss that you're going through, what did you love? What is something you loved about that person, that time in your
Mhm.
life? And share it with us, send us a DM and let us know. Have you had signs from loved ones? I'd love to hear your sign stories. If you've found something that's been super helpful in your grief journey, share with us and we'll make sure to share that with our community. Ashley, anything else that you want to share? I mentioned a couple books. We'll put those in the show notes.
Mm.
Oh, I do have
Things that I
one
was
thing.
kind of planning. Oh, go ahead. No, you go.
Well, I just want to say I love, the question I shared, what does my grief need today? Listen to that, like really
Hmm.
honor that question because some days it's going to need to cry in the bathtub. Sometimes it's going to need to call somebody. Like you need to let that move through you. It's not something that you have to hide or repress, but just honor it, make space for it. But I love this quote. I'm curious if you've heard this before. Another thing I picked up, I have no idea where I heard it, but they were talking about the response to grief. And she said, a flourish always follows a falter.
Mm.
And that really spoke to me because it kind of is what I'm experiencing in my own life right now. After a year of grieving my dad, I'm also experiencing this like flourish in my life, like all these new people and new experiences and new opportunities and a newness that I'm really excited about. So I don't know if that's helpful for anyone, but sometimes it's hard when you're in it to know that, the clouds do part a little bit, it changes.
Mhm.
And so I hope that if anyone needed to hear
Well,
that.
and it's a new stage, that like becoming an empty nester, becoming a person who's lost their father, you don't have a daddy anymore.
Mhm.
That all of those things, it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't want this part of my life to be over.
Yes.
And I think there's so much grief just in that. I don't want I don't want to do that though. I
Yeah.
don't want my kids to leave. I don't want my dad to be gone, even though it is just a part of the rhythm of life
Mm.
also. And I just hope for everyone that they feel supported in this and that they found that there can be humor even after loss and joy even after loss, but remembering that what if, we've all heard it, but like, what if this was our last day?
Yeah.
What do I wish I would have done? And I feel so grateful, like to be sitting here. Shannon and I are looking at each other over Zoom, to be sitting with my dear friend, and that we get to do this and support each other through this life stage shift change.
Yes. Yes.
And that there is an honoring for me that I'm still here and I get to go through this hard thing
Yes.
with my friends and family and
Yes,
whoever.
and talking about it helps. And I hope that listening to us talk about it is also helpful. Another thing that I wrote down, Ashley, wanted to share this. I love this reminder because I think it's just, we never know who we're going to meet. We never know what people are going through. And we've all gone through loss, especially over the last couple of years. And
Oh
it's
gosh,
just a
yeah.
reminder of treating everyone like they are grieving,
Mm.
treating everyone like they are going through loss, treating everyone like they're going through change. If we
Mhm.
just did that, I think we'd be more compassionate, not only to everyone else, but we'd allow ourselves to have that space to, and these
Mhm.
honest conversations to say, I'm doing great. I'm feeling so happy. And I'm having a really hard day right now. I'm having a really hard
Mhm.
stage. I'm really, really
Mhm.
sad and feeling anxious about it. And both can coexist. And I can be
Mhm.
honest in how I'm feeling.
Yeah, we can have two truths
Yeah.
at once.
Yeah.
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 Well, thank you for your sharing. I love you. I love
I love
laughing
you.
with you, but I also love crying with you too. It feels good. It feels good to be able to share. And if you guys ever see me out in public, like chasing a butterfly or talking to a hawk, just let me be. That's just, one of
Yeah.
my sign moments. So.
Chasing my dad over there with Baba.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, you let us know how your visit goes with your sweet boys, and we will see you guys all in our next episode.
See you soon.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like the Mindful Mama Movement podcast, share it with your friends and go to iTunes, leave us a review and rate the show. This will help us reach more moms like you. To learn more about Shannon Kinney Do, go to afreespiritlife.com. And to learn more about Ashley Walburn, go to homeholistic.com. Thanks again for listening and sharing this show with your friends, and we will see you in the next episode.